One of the questions I get asked a lot is, what did you learn from your biggest failures? And before I dive into that, I just want to say that one of the things you want to develop in your life is the ability to learn not just from your failures, but from your successes. Usually the reason we learn from our failures is that it's the only time we become open to learning. What happens when we're succeeding is that we become, well, overconfident. We actually maybe even become arrogant, and we start overlooking the details and ignoring the process and flipping on the areas that actually gained us the success. I actually think that people who have continuous success are people who have learned how to learn in their successes, not just in their failures. I coach several incredibly high-octane performers, people who are the very best in their fields. And one of the interesting things is that across the board, they usually call me and ask me to help them when they've had a significant challenge or failure. And all of them will admit, man, when I was successful, when things were going really, really well, I wasn't really open to outside input. It took the failure for me to become open. So I want to be clear. There is so much you will learn and can learn in failure. But it's not because you couldn't learn it in success. It's because we tend to not be psychologically postured to learn during success. So the most important thing to learn out of your failures is that you shouldn't wait to fail to learn. So maybe there should be this almost counterintuitive mindset every time you succeed to relate to it as if inside of it there was a potential failure and go, what could we learn from this? It was probably 10 years ago. I experienced my most significant financial failure. I had a company that was called McManus Studios, and inside of the studios, we had a fashion company and a film company and a tech company, and we did some publishing as well, and it was thriving. In fact, one of our fashion companies won the Eco Domani Award for fashion in the first year or so, and our film company created the #1 rated commercial for the Super Bowl rated by Ad Rate. And so we had really incredible success. We were thriving. We were financially liquid. And I remember on our last economic forecast, I was able to show our business partner that we were thriving and didn't need any more investment. They were actually already moving with so much economic momentum that we were good to go. And then I woke up one day and it was all gone. My business partner made a decision that cost me the entire company. And that day, somewhere between $6 to $10 million of valuation was gone. And not only that, but just before that, I had taken all my profits and put it back into the company to try to reinvest in our own business. And that was gone. And I remember flying home from Dallas at that time to my home in Los Angeles, having to tell my wife that I lost everything. And that journey was a really challenging journey. It didn't get fixed overnight. It took me 5 years to dig or work my way out of the consequences of that failure. And I think if I were to pull out some significant learning lessons, these are the ones that come to mind. The first one is choose who you work with really carefully. You want to partner with people that you trust and that trust you. You want to make sure that you have people who are not just committed to the business, but are committed to each other. And by the way, that's even true when you're doing well, because if you're in business and you're succeeding with people you do not enjoy and do not trust and do not have a really significant relationship with, it won't be as much fun. It won't be enjoyable. It is so much better to do life with friends. It is so much better to do business with people you love and to do business with people you enjoy, to do business with people you want to do life with. And so that, to me, that's my first lesson, is success is so rare and failure is so common that you want to succeed and fail with people that you care about. You want to succeed and fail with people that you know have your back, whether you succeed or fail. And so to me, the beginning of the journey, the thing I learned the most is it's all about people. And then even in the mix of that, I learned some other things about myself personally. I learned that I could take more than I thought. I didn't know that I could take that kind of pressure, that kind of stress, that kind of failure. When you lose that kind of money in one day and you have to wake up the next morning, and believe me, I did not want to wake up the next morning. You have to begin to problem solve. And if I could encourage anyone is no matter how bleak or how dark or how difficult or how overwhelming a situation may be, you can actually work your way out of it. It just doesn't happen fast. It took me 5 years to pay off all the debt from that business disaster. And it took me 5 years to make myself whole again economically, or just get back to zero. And the reality is that I became stronger as a human being. When I was able to take the blunt force trauma of that failure, I realized I was more resilient than I thought. I would have never known how resilient I was if I hadn't had that experience in my life. And it gave me an incredible amount of confidence because I realized I can risk more now that I know I can actually take more. If I can survive great failures, then I can take great risks. I think a lot of us take incredibly mitigated risks because we don't know how much failure we can actually endure. But when you realize that you're capable of taking on massive failures, that's when you're capable of taking on massive risk and able to step in massive success. I think that for me was a very personal and life-changing reality that I came to experience. And I think maybe a third thing that I learned, the first was choose the people you work with because you want to do life with them. And they'll be with you for both the good and the bad, the failure and the success. The second is don't get angry when your resilience gets tested, because it's only when your resilience gets tested that you can know the limits of your ability to risk and to take on failure. And I think the third thing I would say is that whenever you lose something, it creates incredible space for something new. When I came to the end of that journey, even though I was starting all over again, the one thing I had that I did not have the first time is all that experience. So I wasn't starting from scratch. I had gained years of entrepreneurial experience, years of business experience, years of learning of how to build this company. So when I was starting again, I wasn't starting from scratch. When people say, I lost everything, I had to start over again, I had to start from scratch. No, you're never starting from scratch. Everything you go through, every experience, every success, every failure is building in you a universe of knowledge, of insight, of wisdom, of experience. And so when you start your next project, you're not starting where you left off. You're not starting where you began the first time. You're starting with so much more that your intrinsic value as a business person or as a leader, as an entrepreneur, has increased exponentially. And I love the reality that even in the worst situation, in the worst economic downturn, they can take everything from you, but they cannot take who you've become. And who you've become is actually your greatest commodity. So now let's go back and apply this in a practical way. How do you start now? If it's all about people, choose your inner circle carefully. Look at the people in your life right now. Are they the kind of people you want to become? Are they going where you want to go? And I know it may sound difficult, but you need to find a way to get into better rooms, get around better people, get around people who are more passionate, more ambitious, more fully alive, who are kinder, more compassionate, more generous. Right now, today, evaluate your circle. And maybe you have a lot of people in your life that are less driven than you, but you want to be more driven. Then get around people who are more driven. Maybe you're around people who are not very generous, but you want to become more generous. Get around more generous people. Maybe you want to become a person who's kinder, and you're around some people who are really mean and caustic. Get around kinder people. Step one is choose your circle carefully. Pick the people that you want to go forward with. In terms of building your resilience and discovering who you are, choose one small risk right now that you could take, that you should take, that you must take, and step into that. Don't try to change the whole world. Just try to change one thing in your life. Pick one area of your life where you want to improve, get better, you want to grow in, and make incremental steps forward. One of the things I think sometimes we try to do is when we try to change, we try to change everything at one time. Don't change everything at one time. Change something and watch how that something will begin to change everything. And then finally, do an assessment, a personal assessment. I think sometimes when we look around, we assess, what we have. Do I have a car? Do I have an apartment? Do I have a house? Do I have clothes? Do I have money in the bank? Do I have this or that? And we're doing an external assessment. Do an internal assessment. Take some time and take a blank sheet of paper and a pen and start writing down everything you've learned. Do an internal assessment. This is how I'm growing. This is where I've grown. This is what I've been through. This is what I come to know. And begin to do a personal audit so that you can realize that you actually have changed, that you are growing, and that you have a lot to contribute. Maybe you need to create a resume, not for a company, but for yourself. Remind yourself what you've been through. Remind yourself what you've overcome. Remind yourself of who you are and begin to build your confidence. Not based on some abstract, I'm going to be confident because I believe something good is going to happen to me. Build your confidence based on this is who I've become. This is what I've been through. This is what I've been able to learn from. Your confidence will come from your internal world. And as you grow as a person, you need to make sure that you are paying attention to who you're becoming. And by the way, you might surprise yourself. You might want to sit down and write a top 10. I know it's crazy, you can't show it to your friends, but write a top 10 of the most amazing things that you've been through, that you've done, how you've changed, who you've become. In a sense, your own personal top 10, and then begin to build from there. Because no failure can ever take away from you if you lean into that failure and refuse to be stopped and choose to learn and grow.